Hello again. Welcome to our second webinar series. I'm Sarah Griffin and I'm co-hosting with
Sophia Capri.
And we are your birth parent search and reunion group coordinators. So in the second part of our webinar series, we are interviewing the three lovely ladies you guys saw last time, Ming, Charlotte, and Laney, who happen to be on our CCI board as well, which is really neat. And today they're going to be talking about how they began their search. So if you guys want to give a short introduction again so we remember who you are.
Hey everyone, so my name is Ming, and as I said in the first segment, I was adopted from Kunming in Yunnan Province, China in 1994. Also, I am 29 and I did start my search when I was around 22 or so, or even younger. So how did I start searching? I started searching actually during my study abroad in 2011. I wanted to see if I would be able to find any connections or contacts during my time there. Granted, my study abroad was only 6 months, and I showed interest pretty much on the last 2 months of my time there. So I had very limited time to do my search, or at least start it. I was fortunate enough to connect with a teacher of mine who had some ties with a woman who worked with the TV station that was the Yunnan TV station. And so he and I got to talking, and he had described how, if I put my name out there on TV and, shared my story, there might be a chance that people might recognize me. And so it'd be worth a shot. And so pretty soon, like maybe within that week of us discussing that, he introduced me to his friend, who then was able to do an interview actually at the university in which I studied at, which is kind of iconic in that that university has a lot of connection to my life because, side story, but when I was in the orphanage, they used to take us out on walks and such, and I guess there was a part of our walk where they would stop and have us just sort of observe and enjoy the weather, and that was at the university. So I was able to interview with this woman, and she was able to air my segment that very night. And then that very night, I got a text from my teacher saying, "Oh, by the way, someone already recognizes you from TV." And I thought, oh, this might be my chance. I try not to keep my hopes up too high, but he described the person as someone who wanted to communicate with me first before, revealing any more information. And so a few days later, I was able to take some time off of class, and I actually met the director of the TV station. She's one of the, I guess, more of the executive directors up there. And long story short, she was able to share with me how when she was first doing her journalism school experience, her first project to utilize her newscast skills was working to document her experience at the orphanage. And when she was there, she was able to, interview with some people and take some photos and video and things like that. And granted, this was in the 1990s. So before she was able to leave, she was in a kind of rush, and apparently my young self tried to get her attention because she almost left her purse at the orphanage. And from that moment, she remembered who I looked like and what I was about, and she felt so inclined, and I don't know, I guess she had a soft spot to be able to try to help me. But that was also about a month before I was to be adopted. So the orphanage had restricted her from, donating money or time to me as well as the other children, even though she had such a strong interest to help and support. So her heart basically was broken, I guess, in the sense that she wasn't able to know what I was about and how my life came about. And when she saw me on TV and was able to go back into her memories of being on that project, she had to tell me that who she was. So that was one person who was able to share a little bit about knowing who I was. And the way she described me was very, I thought, beautiful, because it basically indicated how much she had such a strong attachment, I guess, to my young self. I mean, I was only like 2.5, 3.5 years old, so still young, but very, I guess, impactful. And a few days later, there was more information about a family that thought I was their child. Of course, it was actually the father, what would have been my father's brother, so my uncle. He thought I looked very much like his nephew. And I was able to actually meet the family with, of course, the TV station, which was pretty intense. And on top of that, news stations like the newspaper and other external sources were getting word of my story, and my story spread as far as like people in England knew about it. So that was pretty interesting and cool. And even like some of the top officials, I guess, in the Chinese government were kind of contacting me, being like, "Wow, we wish you the best and hope for the best for your search." So I guess in some sense, I was kind of like a small celebrity in Kunming and as well as abroad, where people were trying to congratulate me and wish me the best on this search. I will mention when I first met this family, it was very surreal and they were very welcoming. I would say, though, the mother, I think, was the most difficult person I couldn't really relate to. I think it was because they said she had some sort of memory problem when she'd given birth to me. So I think her way of socializing was very different. And also just being a farmer in China is very hard to do. It's a very hard life. And so I'm pretty sure that impacted her, interactions with me as well as other people. But the father, I will mention, I was able to connect with him even though we didn't speak the same language. Mandarin was no help. They spoke their own dialect. And I was able to talk with the siblings. The brother who, he had a nice smile. He seemed very friendly and warm-hearted. And the sister, she would have been my younger sister, but she was planning on getting married and already going to have a child soon. So they had a lot going on. And ultimately, I asked if they would want to do a DNA test, and they were very okay with that. And we did a DNA test. And basically, I found out also on live TV that they were not a match, that was a pretty significant part of my search. And another part of my search was finding the person who had signed off on my papers, who worked for the Chinese government / police force. And it was surreal to meet her because it's like putting her signature to her face, a name to her face. And she had shown interest in trying to help me. And unfortunately, that was short-lived, as has been the case for many people searching for their birth families, is that there's a lot of people who are gung-ho about helping, but then they just bail whenever. So that was a little bittersweet for me, just because I felt a strong affinity to this woman. But I would say the one memorable part of this search so far was that the father, though he didn't make that much, in terms of living, he was able to buy me a little jade. Well, it was a glass bracelet, but it looks like jade. And he gave that on my almost last day of me leaving China. And that was documented in the series. And when we had our goodbye lunch, he was so warm-hearted and loving toward me, even though we both found out we're not, biologically related. And he, fed me and everything. And one would think that's a little odd since I'm, an adult, but I thought it was very like humbling and beautiful because he still wanted to show care toward me, even though I was not his daughter. And unfortunately, I was not able to see the mom since she was stuck at the farm and stuff like that. But yeah, so my methods for searching has definitely varied. I'm more than happy to expand on my horizons on how to search, but that's what I had so far at the time that I started searching.
Hi, it's me, Laney again. Just to reiterate, I'm 26 right now, and I was from Ma'anshan, Anhui province in China. I was adopted in August of '94. So my searching, I'll just begin by saying my search began around the summer of 2010, and I actively searched until 2013, and then I haven't been active since then. I hope to, once life sort of settles, I don't know what, try searching again. But for how did I start searching, I'll just talk about like the first year and a half. So I was 16 when my mom really helped me search. So I didn't have to really do anything. My mom took it upon herself. She knew I wanted to search, and she was very supportive, and she went online. She joined a bunch of Yahoo groups and found someone in my hometown who was willing to like put up flyers and posters and the searching, finding posters that a lot of you all who have searched or maybe know about searching have made for yourselves. So she did that, and in the fall of 2010, I guess I was still 16, I did find a family that I thought was mine. We did DNA, and it came back positive. And for about, from November until March of 2011, I thought the family was mine. Turned out the DNA company or whatever in the United States that we had sent it to sent me someone else's results. And we found this out after having to contact them because there were some translation issues, and they were saying that my birthday was physically a date that would have made it impossible for my mom to have adopted me. So they were saying my birthday was in September, but I was adopted in August. Physically impossible. So that's how I began my search. It was very rough. And in the second half, in this next episode, I'll tell you like what it was like on the ground, where I actually had a different person helping me with the translations and everything. Someone who my mom found through her Yahoo groups and all of those searching techniques. I know maybe for those of you who are interested in searching that hearing my story may not help you in yours, but it's just a different perspective, and it was a long time ago. So yeah, that's just how I began my search. Till next time.
Thanks, Laney and Ming. That was really interesting to hear about both of your stories. Again, so hi again, everyone. I'm Charlotte, and I am 25 years old. I was adopted from Zhenjiang City in Jiangsu Province, which is on the eastern seaboard of China. And I'll talk a little bit about how I started to search. Because I think a lot of the questions that we've been getting is just, people have maybe thought about, adoptees have maybe thought about searching, and maybe they've decided that, yes, I'm interested, and this is a time in my life where I think it'd be a good time for me to search. But just because there's so kind of little and kind of authority information or standard information on like how to search, the question of where do you even begin, literally what steps can you take, is just such a big question. And then I also wanted to echo what Laney was saying, that I don't intend, of course, to share my story as like this is how you should do it or how you can do it, of course, but it's just my personal story and what I personally chose to do. And I think, yeah, in many ways, I was faced with a lot of the same questions of like, I've seen, a bunch of different tactics or ways to go about it, but I had no idea what like was one better than the other. Is there one that I should start with or not? So I felt like, a lot of people had kind of thrown spaghetti on the wall, a lot of spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks. And again, I guess in a lot of ways, just because there was maybe even more at the time that Laney and Ming were searching, there was just no precedent for like what steps can you take, what can you do. So going back to a little bit about to where I left off in the last webinar, I decided to search in the summer of 2016 because I had been awarded a semester in Taiwan for study, and I decided that maybe the summer before that, before I went to study in Taiwan for the fall, might be a good time for me to travel to mainland China and do some searching. And luckily, I was able to connect up with a friend who I had met on an adoptee trip a couple of years earlier. And she said, hey, I'd be interested in searching with you if you'd be interested. So that was really great that we were able to plan this trip together. And because we were both 22, 23 at the time, we decided to go without our parents, which was a particular decision that we made personally. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether, for better or for worse, but it did really impact how we sort of were able to experience a lot of things. But so what happened was we had planned a trip and probably, for mid-July. And we had our tickets booked, and we really didn't have too much of a plan at first. Like we were like, maybe we'll just go route searching, maybe, post up a couple flyers and then do some tourism, but we really didn't have that much of a plan to per se, which I don't know. Luckily it kind of came together at the end, but yeah, we didn't really know exactly how we would go about it. But then my friend came up with this idea that she had seen other people, other adoptees who had searched in China, share their information on social media, on Chinese social media, like WeChat, Weixin, or Sina, Weibo, which is like microblogging platform that I don't know if it's still popular these days, but at the time it was sort of popular. So she recommended that, we might as well, while we're still in America and we still have some time before we're gonna head off to our trip, do a little bit of prep beforehand, share a poster, encourage other people to share it widely and see if we can get either any leads or any contacts in the local area that might be able to help us, whether it be like, local reporters that we can decide to trust or not, or like local students in the area who might be able to help us with translation. The one lucky thing was that I had studied Chinese for a good while before, so I was basically going as the translator there. Of course, yeah, like Ming said, when we eventually down the road, which I'll talk about in a different webinar, we're able to meet with people. A lot of them spoke dialects, which I couldn't really understand because I was learning standard Mandarin. But that was one thing. So sorry, going back. So we decided to share on social media, and because I was able to speak Chinese, I translated myself. And I'm the worst. I think the CCI board can tell you I'm the worst designer ever. People had to tell me to stop using word art. So it was a very rudimentary poster. I think I even made it on like PowerPoint, and then I saved it as a PDF. But it was really the basic information. It had any pictures of us a picture of us as we were babies, and a picture of us currently. And then my friend also had a picture on there of her foster family that she was also looking for. And then we included information, any information that we had, where we were adopted from, if we had information about where we were picked up, information if we had our birth dates or the birth dates that were given to us on our inner file. We put that on there, and then we made an email account specifically for this purpose, and we put that as the contact address. So that was really the first thing that we did. And I was lucky enough that I had studied abroad before, so I had a bunch of friends in China, and they helped me share it really broadly and connect it with sort of news media, and ask them to spread it pretty widely. Yeah, I think, and like Ming said, I think there was an interest in these sort of like human interest stories. So now I don't think I was as much of a celebrity as her, but it did get shared to a significant amount. And then, from there, the next kind of starting thing that I did was I connected. It was actually, now that I look back on it, I sort of block it out, but it was a really kind of chaotic time from the time that I posted it, before like I settled on working with a single reporter, because I got like a lot of random requests, or like some people like claiming that I don't know, I can't say whether or not they were legitimate requests, and maybe some of them actually had a daughter around the time of of the information that I posted. But yeah, I got a lot of it, and I was kind of working around the clock, of course, because of the time difference, trying to respond to a lot of different messages. So it was really chaotic. But when in the end, I did settle upon one reporter that I was working with. And yeah, that was really how I started my search.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte, Megan, Laney, again for sharing with all of us. Yeah, we just want to reiterate that this is not like a how-to video on how to search and the whole process, and that everyone's process is unique and different. So, but this can be helpful just to hear about other people's journeys and stories. And stay tuned for our next part on the ground searching, an expansion on this topic. Thank you.